Is Veil Walker a good item in Deadlock? Well, after watching this last Deadlock Night Shift, in particular the EU match, the first match that just happened between Abrahams and Buff Enjoyers, this item was bought several times. I think at least 4 people in the game had bought this early in the game as well. So I figured, why not go ahead and ask the question, is this a good item? Hey everyone, this is Connor here at Dead Unlocked, and I'm continuing in our series today where we break down various items in Deadlock, and we ask 5 questions. What does the item do? What hero should you buy it on? What game situation should you buy it in? Is it a core or situational item? And then finally, is it a good item overall? So let's start off by taking a look at what does Veil Walker do simply. This item gives you just naturally 175 bonus health and 10 spirit power. So you're actually getting some pretty solid stats with this item just right off the bat. And then you have a passive that can actually proc every 12 seconds. And this is a passive a lot of people don't know about all the things that it does, but this is a really solid passive ability. Walking through a cosmic veil grants you stealth, heal, and increased move speed. You become invisible, you gain 4 meters per second invis move speed, and you heal 150. This lasts for the invisibility lasts for 7 seconds, and this can be used every 12 seconds. So like I said, this item was bought a ton in a recent Deadlock Night Shift game, so I want to talk a little bit more about what heroes you should be buying this item on, what game situations might call for it, and how you can work it into certain strats. So let's take a look. Taking a look at what Veil Walker does, I'll put it on screen, and we have to ask the question, what heroes should you buy this on? So in that Deadlock Night Shift match I was telling you about, on one team, I think at least the Abrams had it. On the other team, though, 3 members got this item pretty early on. Now, the Abrams got it, I think, second or third item. On the other side, I believe it was Abrahams had this. They were using it on Shiv, Doorman, and Bebop. And it makes sense, right? You know, if you're thinking about how those comps could work, and we'll get into the game situations in a second. If you're pairing like a Doorman and a Bebop, and you're just looking for picks, you're looking for quick burst damage, surprise damage, and so this is where that kind of thing can come into play, right? This item gives you an invisible effect, movement, and heal. So we have to think about characters that would benefit from being invisible, moving around the map a little bit faster. Obviously, everyone can benefit from a quick heal, so that's not necessarily a huge point, but the more you're roaming around the map, the more you're going to be able to proc Veil Walker naturally, because you're just going to be moving around the map. So I would say map movement and activeness is a big thing to think about here as well. So I certainly think if the pros are running it, it's worth us considering running it. So I do want to mention the heroes that I mentioned in the game that were running it, that being Abrams, Bebop, Doorman, and Shiv. Again, all of these heroes, I think make sense. These are all heroes that, like I said, look for surprise attacks, are going to be roaming around the map. They are not necessarily going to be farming as much as they are going to be fighting. So this is a discrepancy I might make with this item a little bit. Is I think there probably are, you know, farming carry heroes that you can buy Veil Walker on, but I would really be looking for this item on those heroes that you want to be getting into fights, especially in the early and mid game. Maybe will you have another player farming. So for and we'll get into the game situation here in a little bit, but for Abrahams, they had a pocket that was going off and doing all of the farm basically and occupying that part of the map while they were fighting, so they bought Veil Walker. Makes sense. That's where the heal comes into play even more. If you're fighting and you're healing off the fight, right, you get benefits from that. Other heroes that I could really see benefiting from this, honestly, there's a lot. I could definitely see Calico running some Veil Walker, though. Obviously, this is your most active as far as going around the map hero. Same for Drifter. I mean, these two, very, very, very active pretty much all the time, so I could see either of the two of them running Veil Walker. Then you have assassin kind of characters like Haze. I don't know that Haze needs it because of her 2. That's kind of the tricky part here. But if you were looking for an additional way to get invis and almost stay invis the entire time, maybe you're doing like some kind of purely just surprise ult build where you're just going around invisible the whole time, and maybe you set up a silence wave or a focus lens and then you ult or something like that. I could see that making sense. Otherwise, not too many others that I can really think of off the top of my head. I guess Mo and Krill would be one. I've seen people running this Mo and Krill build where you go around invisible. You could even pair it with like a Warp Stone or a Phantom Strike, and then you're just setting up your combos over and over again. Again, you're thinking of characters where sneak attacks can be really beneficial, and that's why the ones that the pros are running on that match really do make a whole lot of sense. I.e., again, Bebop, Abrams, Doorman. I mean, those are characters where this really could come into play in a huge way. Otherwise, again, I'm not exactly sure who I would recommend here. You might be able to make the case for like Billy running it. He was in that last game as well and did not run. I think he was running Battle Vest, Enchanters, and then all gun items. That makes a lot of sense too. but maybe you want to go for like a ult build where you set up, run in, use it. But yeah, again, you can run it on more heroes than what I'm saying here, but I do think the ones that I mentioned are probably your top candidates. But any hero that you're looking to run where you're moving around the map, roaming, fighting often, Veilwalker is giving you a lot of what you want to do. It's almost in some ways like a trophy collector with instant value and better native stats, so maybe consider buying Veilwalker on those characters that I mentioned. But let's look at some game situations like I just talked about and see when this item might come into play specifically in a game. All right, now next with Veilwalker, like in the series, usually I want to talk about what game situation specifically I'm going to buy this item in, and I'll usually show an example from one of my own games where I have bought the item in question, break it down from there. I'll put on screen an image of the comp from the Deadlock Night Shift game, the one I was talking about, because this is really what I want to look at. I think this is what is actually very interesting, and especially because pros are running it, I think they have certainly a larger understanding of this game than I do, and I think that they can contribute a lot of knowledge to how we go about buying this item in our own games. So, on one team, you have Lady Geist, Mina, Abrams, Paradox, Mirage, Warden, going up against Billy, Shiv, Doorman, Bebop, Kelvin, Pocket. And I really want to talk about this team on the right here. I think this is Abraham's. They are running this item, Veilwalker, like I mentioned, on Shiv, Doorman, and Bebop. And this honestly is a very curated and specific example of how to run this item. Because what this team is looking to do is they're looking to set up quick kills early in the game. That's why this item was rushed, and that's why this item is working in this comp specifically. Because you have to think about who you have on your team in the early game. They were running Bebop and Doorman in a lane together, which I recommend you guys watching that lane. It was crazy to watch. A whole lot of cool Doorman and Bebop tech in there. So that's your early game presence right there. There those two things. If you're using Veilwalker early, which I think they got it maybe third or fourth item, so not incredibly early game, but still like in the first part of the game. You can cycle healing through those Veils in lane, and you can stay invisible, get a lot of good surprise damage off right away. In the mid game, when you start to rotate around, you have a Kelvin that you can pull people into his Bebop, you have a Shiv you can pull people into his Bebop, and a Billy and a Pocket. Right? You have so many tools to confirm these single eliminations before a team fight even starts, and that is really the crux of what this team's trying to do in this game, right? They're trying to end the fight before it begins. A lot of individual pickoffs. This is a lot of times just what teams, especially at the high level, want to do when they're playing with a Bebop, is they want to set up these really quick, explosive plays. This is not necessarily a team that wants to fight super long fights, but even if they had to, they're not awful in doing that. Now, they ended up winning this map, and so obviously they had something figured out here, but I think this gets at a lot of the specific times when you want to run this item. It's the same kind of ideas, right? Especially, I want to talk about the Shiv on this team running this item, because yes, we can talk at length about how it's a really cool, interesting strategy that three of them ran Veilwalker in one game. We also have to recognize, though, that this is a pro game. This is not a pickup game. This is not matchmaking. This is a coordinated team effort game, very unlike what we're going to see in our matchmaking games when we're playing casually, right? So for the casual person watching this video for your matchmaking games, I would actually watch the Shiv gameplay in this game if you're looking for a specific instance of when you might want to buy this item, because Shiv really makes it work. And honestly, as well, Listic on the Abrams on the other side is another one I would look at. Both of the two of them are running Veilwalker in a way that really makes a little bit more sense for the casual matchmaking way, because you're looking to surprise, fight, and you're the one that's going to cause the damage, right? You're the one that's going to be roaming around the map. You're not doing it to set up a teammate, because that adds another layer of like, you have to rely on someone else to make a play, which in matchmaking, we all know, sometimes you want to limit that a little bit, maybe unless it's your duo or someone you're communicating with. But for the Abrams and the Shiv, their Veilwalker, I guess, benefit or value comes from just something they're doing. So it's not that like Bebop has to hook, someone set it up. Like, they are the ones going around causing the mayhem, getting the surprise charges, getting the surprise ults, all that kind of stuff. So I would go back again. If you want some gameplay, I would encourage you guys. I'm not affiliated with Deadlock Night Shift. I just really think it's a great product and a really cool thing. I would go watch that EU Challengers match, or the best of three, the first match of the best of three. If you want to see some Veilwalker in action, it's a really cool example. But again, keep in mind, this is pro play and this is very coordinated. So I'm telling you, I would key in on the Abrams and the Shiv as far as how you might want to pilot Veilwalker in a matchmaking scenario. But let's take a look now at, is this a core or situational item? All right, since we're talking about Doorman, I thought we'd bring up Doorman here, and I think this is a pretty good example of how you might want to think about Veilwalker in a lot of games, because by and large, I know we're talking about this, I know it was just bought really heavily in a pro Deadlock match, so it's kind of like our spidey senses are tingling. We have to talk about the item a little bit, right? I still think this is almost always going to be a situational item. I think there's a lot that you have to consider with this. Now, the only times when it's core is if you're trying to do something very specific with a hero. So, for example, in this Piggy's Doorman build here, I don't think that, Veilwalker's obviously not a core item. He's got it in the miscellaneous optional section here to kind of set up like invisible carts and make kind of the quirkier plays. But the purpose of this build, as you can kind of see just purely by the colors that you're seeing, this is a really spirit-heavy, big burst, heavy damage kind of build. Now this, on the other hand, is Together's Abrams build. And this actually does not have Veilwalker in it, but I could really easily see Veilwalker becoming a pretty core item in this build. I think, for example, you could substitute maybe Warpstone and buy Veilwalker instead. You can maybe even get away with substituting something early on, like one of these two items, one of the the early 1600 resistances. You could even splice it in as just kind of an extra mid-game item, maybe after Silence Wave or maybe even before Spirit Snatch here, depending on when you needed it. But this Abrams build is looking to do pretty much specifically what we're talking about. This is a roam the map, cause debuffs, cause problems, and get in close to the enemy. You can do that a whole lot easier if you're invisible, you have extra move speed, and you're healing while you're doing it. So this is the kind of build where I would look for Veilwalker specifically, is if you're doing these kinds of things where move speed's a priority, we're getting in close to priority, all that kind of stuff. I mentioned Billy earlier. I'm sure you could find a lot of Billy builds that are the same way. All the heroes I mentioned earlier apply here, Calico, Shiv, etc. So, but I would look for builds like this. There are probably other builds out there that have this already set in, but if you're looking to kind of use this item more, I'm guessing based on those games that we saw today and the one I just talked about, we're probably going to start seeing Veilwalker a little bit more. This is just kind of the natural flow of things in gaming and esports. Once the pros do it, other players are going to try and imitate. So I'm trying to get you all ahead of the curve here a little bit on when to play Veilwalker in your games. Now we finally have to ask, is Veilwalker a good item in Deadlock? I think based on the games today, I think we have to at least give it some kind of credit. I mean, the pros were playing it. There's an early rush on it. The stats it gives are really, really impressive. I mean, if we think about it, getting 175 health, 10 spirit power is really, really good. Let's compare it to like Fortitude. 375 bonus health is obviously a lot, and the regen there is a lot. But the healing you're getting, the spirit power you're getting, this really does feel like it's an item that can fit into a lot of different scenarios. I don't know that for the average player, this is a good item and one I would recommend buying in like 50% or higher of your games, because it's almost like an active item in some ways, where if you're not going around and interacting with Veils, you're just not getting the value out of it. This is a lot of times for players who buy like an Arcane Surge or something like that, where there's no active icon reminder to kind of remind you to use the item. So a lot of times you just forget. You forget you have Veilwalker, and you'll end up running right around here, and you won't just pop into that Veil really quick, because you should be doing this all the time if you're running Veilwalker in a game, just to get the speed, just to get the heal, and to be able to move around a little bit quicker, right? Get the invis. So all in all, I would say that I don't think Veilwalker is a bad item at all. I just worry for the average player that they might not pilot this item correctly. It's not a reason not to use it, but if you're going to buy Veilwalker, make sure you're actively finding ways to incorporate it into your strategy in a game, make sure it's giving your team value, and make sure you're using it. I mean, make sure you're actually going around and using the Veils. If you don't, this item will be a waste of money. The stats alone are not worth it. You need to be using the actual active Veilwalker part of this. If you do, you can find some value. I think this item can be sick in Deadlock right now. But that is going to do it for this one. If y'all don't know, we have an entire series on item breakdowns. I'm trying to slowly work through. My goal is the entire item roster. It's going to take me a long time to do it, but I hope to do it. This is our first 3200 item on the channel to cover. We've covered a lot of the 6400s just to get started, but if there's an item that you want to see broken down next, let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you all so much for tuning in. From our house to yours, we'll see you all next time here at Dead Unlocked.